Well, hey there, everyone. Welcome back. This is AI After 50. Mark and John back with you. How are you today? This is episode number 9. We're recording this on Saturday, March the 14th, 2026. And John is just fresh back from Las Vegas. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And we're going to visit a little bit about what we've been doing and talk about this week's topic, which is the 3 skills that you need that will to set you apart as an AI leader within your organization or company. So we would like to say that, first of all, we would love to have you subscribe to the podcast and also subscribe to our show notes. We take everything we've talked about here in the podcast, we distill those down into some show notes that we hope are valuable and usable for you. And then also we have premium show notes where we go a little bit more beyond what we talk about here in the podcast because we only have so much time and it still can add value for you and your organization. So we invite you to do that. The description will be part of where you see the description of whatever podcast platform you are on. So, John, I'd love to hear about what happened with you in Las Vegas this week and out at the HIMSS National Convention. It's an annual event. Tell us about what you went to and what your week was like.
Week was a busy week, Mark, and I won't give the cliche, what happens in Vegas, because it's actually, for me, it's quite the opposite, because all of the information that was, acquired and learned and doing deep dives on during that 5 days has been assimilated. So one aspect of that is taking all the information, and there's a lot of PDFs that come out of the sessions and education sessions. And this is a purely healthcare IT conference, all things health IT. So the goal of the conference, in a way, the goal of HIMSS, in a sense, is as a global convener of healthcare individuals that are focused on IT heavily. 160,000 people all over the world coming, and the conference probably has about 24,000 people attending with hundreds of vendors. So it's a quite interesting environment, and the focus, of course, is heavy AI now, cloud, cybersecurity, what's going on with regard to systems of record, the medical records and all the tools and vendors that support the medical record in the interest, of course, for better patient outcomes and operational efficiencies. I got to tell you, it's pretty exciting what's going on out there, but heavy, heavy AI and how important AI is with leadership and governing the AI and making sure all the right steps and procedures are taken before an AI solution is brought into the enterprise and shared among not only the clinicians, but being used also with the patients as well. Adding a level of comfort, if you will, that organizations recognize the importance of governance and implementation and validation and adding an ethical side to it with, of course, transparency. And there is always, always, always a human in the loop or a human in the middle. And I think that message just resounds throughout the industry that we're not doing AI just for AI's sake. We're looking
Yeah.
at the business problem. We're seeing if AI is a solution. And then, of course, we're considering, is this part of our overall AI strategy, much less business strategy, and then doing the proper steps to bring it into the organization.
Would you say that was your biggest takeaway?
Oh, takeaways that were the biggest. It's so hard to say, but where I get excited, Mark, is and I said this to somebody, and I think this is the year of the patient. And what do I mean by that? This is the patient really is the one who owns and controls their medical information ultimately, because it's so important. And now that the patients have access to this AI tools that can help them determine and evaluate their own health based on whatever, including the smart watches and everything else. This is the year that the patient and the clinicians collaborate together with these tools to really advance their health.
And, speaking of the tools, a new AMA poll just came out, 2026, the Physician Survey on Augmented Intelligence. This surprised me, and it just came out this week, and I'm surprised maybe they didn't talk about it much. Maybe they did. It's such a big conference. But 81% of US physicians report they're using AI now. And really, what they're using it for, they're summarizing their conversations, their medical research, standards of care. They create the discharge instructions for when you're, in the clinic and from take homes. Their notes, as I said, documenting billing codes. They do charts, the visiting notes, and those types of things. And then also the Gallup poll is now saying almost 50% of public employees are using it, with, anywhere between 25 and 28% of the people using it frequently. And in private sectors, the numbers are almost about the same. So I guess what we're saying here from a leadership standpoint, stuff's being used in your organization. People are using it inside for their daily work. And there's not really any real structured training. And I think this is another direction where a lot of leaders need to go. And, as you said before, we're not using AI just for AI's sake alone, but really asking the questions, should we use it? The answer is probably yes. And where and how do we do it responsibly?
Yeah, Mark, you brought up an interesting aspect, which is not only applicable to healthcare, of course, but it's, you know, the, we talk about AI literacy, but the next step after literacy is actually fluency, so that you can master it and, around a human-centered approach to it. So,
Yep.
the organizations really should be focused on this from the top down, from the bottom up, however you're going to do it and implement it. The entire organization has to be on board with using AI in the ways that make sense in their particular job role. And that is a human AI collaboration between the two, where you're just empowered to use it, and in the right ways, of course. But
People think though that, when they talk about, at least some of the folks I speak with, they think it's a lot more complicated to start adopting it. And it depends on the size of the company, depends on your mission, depend on what you do. But the first place to start, especially in a leadership role, is make AI literacy the number one priority for yourself,
yep.
and being able to understand what it could do, have lunch and learns, those types of things, bring the internal people together. These could be your champions of AI, and how you're going to roll it out, what tools you're going to use. These are discussions you have to have at your organization, and what tool is the best one to use. But I think across the board, one of the first skills to really validate yourself as being that AI leader is just AI literacy, and promote it across the company so everybody has a good understanding of it. And it's only going to help because you start giving people tools, and we've seen this before with big companies over the last year or two. They give the tools, okay, use these things with no training, and then they don't find any value in it. So it's just adopt that literacy, provide that training, and lead from the top down. I think that's kind of what we're saying here for skill number one.
Yeah, Mark, and just to close on that, knowing the tool itself and how to use it, that in many ways is the mechanics of it. If you're using one of a Microsoft tool or Google tool, you know how to click file print, and that's the mechanics of it. But it's really knowing how AI can support the human judgment in a sense and be your thought partner along the way, along that journey. That's where the power comes in. So once you get over the mechanics, it is how do I drive this car? Then you're on your journey to your whatever that destination is.
And I think that dovetails into skill number two. You have to understand, especially from a leadership standpoint, and really anybody, what these large language models can do. ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, the list goes on. Most people think it's a glorified Google, or it just helps you write really good emails and maybe write a good, paper or two and help you with those types of things. But just the capabilities of these models and what they can do, and especially now how far advanced we've come since November of last year, this agentic AI where agents are doing the work and managing these workflows in the background. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves too much, but just understand this stuff can do this now. The deep research capabilities are just, it's unbelievable. And yeah, again, a lot of people know what these AI things can do based on mainstream media, but understanding what they can really can do and how it can help is, I think, skill number two.
Yeah, especially Mark, the agentic aspect of that is really, this is also the year of the agentic AI really becomes embedded into our everyday AI life and productivity. And an example of that, would be a trip planner, having to plan the trip and finding the flights and the hotels and putting that itinerary together, or maybe even just summarizing all your emails in your inbox. So there's many personal things as well as professional things that these agentic AIs are going to help us with.
Our workflow, and we'll share this with you in the
Mm.
coming weeks. We're going to take our workflow here for the podcast. A lot of it goes into it, a lot of research, a lot to do's, creating the script, creating the show notes. I'm going to spin up an agent, John,
Yeah.
and we're going to start small that's going to take care of that. And people go, well, oh, you know how to code maybe and do all that stuff. I don't know how to code. You
Don't
right
have to.
now, no, you don't have to. The
Yeah.
best thing you can do right now with many of these things is you just tell it what outcome. What are you looking for? What do you want it to do? You'll have a conversation back and forth, and it will write that code for you, and it'll spin that agent or that workflow up for you. Again, getting a little ahead of ourselves in some ways because people might be thinking like, "What in the world are you guys talking about?" But just know that that capability is here, and it's going to be here to stay. And especially skill number three. And this is where you had mentioned before, John, it's just not about AI. It's really about working with these tools and it's advanced AI literacy, if you will. Once you understand the basics, once you're
Yep.
talking to them, once you're having those conversations, it does inspire ideas. At least it did for me when I first started doing that. And I know for you too, John, when we go back and forth and talk like, oh my gosh, we just found out about this capability and,
Yep.
we do something about it and we start working with these tools. So advanced use cases, what's worked, and that stuff is certainly searchable. But we've found a few things that we've done, and it's really you have to get beyond that simple prompt and getting an answer. So you got to think about how you can bring it in. Could it be with onboarding? Could it be with training, sales and marketing? And that's advanced literacy, mapping capabilities, and those types of things. Not just asking it random questions. And I think we encourage that because a lot of times it's fun to talk to these things and getting some ideas and being inspired.
Yeah. I have two examples, Mark, and one of them data and information that was generated from this conference. You
Hmm.
feed those into Notebook LM, and then you say, summarize all this in a PowerPoint or a mind map or even a podcast. And it's just amazing how it can really make that learning experience enhanced and provide you the information you're looking for. Another example of being creative is I was with a fellow board member at the show, and he had purchased this tool, and it's called Plod.ai, and it records the session by voice with the voice recording, and then it feeds it into a tool that summarizes it, provides the key insights and a sum and all that. And I said, I wonder if I could do that with the tools that I have, that being a phone and ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT, how can we make this same tool better in a sense? And it says, well, let's build a shortcut. And the shortcut uses the voice recorder on the iPhone. And then it
Right.
feeds it automatically into a project I created in ChatGPT that actually does all of those things and produces amazing results out of the sessions transcript.
Wow.
So pretty cost effective and creative. So that's just an example of saying, how can we accomplish X? How can we perform a task like this? I want to
Hmm.
capture all this information. And then that got fed into Notebook LM. So, wow, good stuff.
Explain Notebook LM because you're using it now, and when people have never heard of it, it's a Google product.
It is, and I actually met with Google there to talk a little bit more about the power of Notebook LM. And of course, as you can imagine, a lot of the Google engineers are using it. It's a very important tool in their mix. And surprisingly, it was asked at one of the sessions. The guy said, "Raise your hand if you're using Notebook LM." And this is a session, maybe 600 people, maybe 10 people raise their hand. So I was
Yeah, I
surprised
know.
how much it is not yet proliferated. But regardless, the tool, you just give it the information, and it's very limited in its search because whatever you give it it's going to output results from just that information unless you
So your
ask
own.
the building. So if you feed it 20 documents and you ask it questions, it stays within that domain in a sense. And from there you could build podcasts, you could build mind maps, you could build infographics, you could build PowerPoints, and they're also a new tool for videos. So
Yeah.
the output of that information is quite illustrative in showing you exactly what it is you're looking for.
With Notebook LM, what I found how it's nice, and you had mentioned it just is. using the sources that you give it to be
Yes.
able to answer your questions and create, do the different tasks you're asking it to do. Since it only works off the source documents, it doesn't hallucinate as much. I mean, you're giving it the information you want it
Point.
to
Good
process
point.
and think over and those types of things.
That's true.
And it is great for that. And, you could take one notebook LM and it could be good for years. And what's nice about it is as the models get better and as AI gets better, so does the tool, Google
Yes.
Notebook
Yes,
LM.
exactly.
And
And you
with
can add
anything,
more information to it, right? So you still
that's
got that
right.
core pieces of information. So everything keeps improving over time in that particular project.
So notebooklm.com, I believe, is the URL for it. And the free version, just try that out. But if you're in Google Workspace or if you have a Google Workspace account in your organization, you probably have the full access to it right now. And again, you probably don't even know about it. And so that takes us, John, to like what should people do as a leader? Where do you go? Where do you start? And we said that platform thing, pick that platform. And the one thing, do it. And if it's from a personal standpoint, before you introduce it into your organization and you're new to this, go to a platform, find out which one's best for you. ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, whatever one, pay for it, $20 a month. And commit to it for 6 weeks, 2 months, and see how you like it because you get the full capabilities of these models. You can prompt it, you can break it, you can make it part of your daily work. And then once that happens, that's when you can start introducing it to colleagues, your boss, and those types of things. Because this, you know, one of the questions, John, was, okay, which platform is best for me? Which one do I use? And maybe we could talk about that next week about the different platforms, what we think they're good at, how we use them, and maybe why you would use one over the other, I think is something that would be beneficial for the
Okay.
audience
I
as well.
thought you were going to mention Perplexity's new computer product in that.
Well,
So we didn't have to really think too hard about which platform.
yeah, what John's talking about, it just came out from Perplexity. If you haven't heard of Perplexity, it's essentially a search engine. The free version is really good too. It's been out a while. I've used it for a while, but what they've created this agentic digital worker that instead of only answering questions, it carries out multi-step workflows, creates those for you. Can go across the web, files, corrected apps, those types of things, and it can bring everything into one, and you can just tell it, I would like to have an app with the end result is this, and it spins it right up, as will a lot of these agents that we've talked about. And we'll get into those more too as the technology
Yeah.
gets better.
Mm.
So the top three skills we talked about: skill one, make AI literacy priority number one within your organization. Understand what these models can do and what they're really capable of doing. You'll be shocked and maybe a little bit overwhelmed, but that's okay. We were too. Once you start working with them, you'll just be, as they say, blown away. And then skill number three, that advanced AI literacy, use cases and what's worked. Find out other organizations, what's worked for them, and kind of apply it, to how you can bring it into your organization, and maybe some talking points that you can go to your boss or supervisors or managers and say, here's why we really, really need to be using these tools.
Maybe
So,
next time we talk about best practices in a sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe best practices and then what model is right for you. That could be next week's show right
Sure.
there.
Sure.
And final thoughts, John, this week. What have you got going with AI? I know what I'm going to do as soon as we're done here after we get the podcast produced. I'm hopping into computer from Perplexity and I'm going to start spinning up our agent that takes
All
care of
right, I
our
guess
show
I'm
and
gonna have to
creates that
try it and
workflow.
keep up with you. But I guess, Mark, one of the things I mentioned earlier was how important it is to keep the human in the loop at all times. That is
Yep.
just resonating with me more than ever.
Mhm.
And it was
Yep.
so comforting in many ways to be around thousands of people who also believe in that importance. We're not getting rid of the human at all in
Don't
how
want
we're
to.
making decisions about, as in medicine or in business and in general. It's just that we have this fantastic support tool now that we didn't have before that is really able to do amazing things. But we
Yep.
remain in control. We're the
We
thought
do.
leader, and that's the thought partner. So
And with that, that sounds like a great way to close. John, until next week in episode number 10. Don't forget our show notes. And in the description, you can subscribe to our premium show notes where we give a little bit more. And on your favorite platform, please hit that subscribe button and you will be notified when a new episode is out. Till next week, John, have a good week and we'll talk to you then.
excellent. Thanks, Mark.
See you, everyone.